It's noon on a rainy day here in Ventnor, New Jersey, and this is news that you can use from YAA with your hosts Zach and Ray. I'm assuming, since Bethesda's not all that far from Ventnor, New Jersey, that it's probably an overcast, rainy day where you are as well, Zach.
Same thing here, Pops. Indeed, it is. Want to kick things off, remind everyone back on the joinyaa.com website. We have all the resources and different ways that we can help you there, Dad. We just talked about yesterday, 31 people sold cars through our website last month. That was such an incredible milestone. Today, Dad, I want to talk about milestones of another sorts. Ford. They're beating Toyota, man, in two categories. There's two categories where Ford is officially better than Toyota. What do you think they are?
Better than Toyota?
Yep.
I don't think there's any categories in which they're better.
Think creatively. There's two categories where Ford and Mr. Farley are better than Toyota. Come on, be creative.
Poor quality. Poor quality and vehicle recalls. How's that?
Okay, well, those are both pretty much the same. Yes, Ford is beating Toyota in terms of quality issues and recalls, but Dad, we have the August numbers for vehicle sales in the United States, and although on a per unit basis, Ford sold 157,000 vehicles in August of 2022 to Toyota's 169,000. Look at the disparity in year-over-year change. Ford sales were up 27.3% year over year, while Toyota sales were down 9.8%. Ford is weathering the storm way better than Toyota.
WeatherTech floor mats, maybe? I don't know. Yes. No, they are. They are weathering the storm better. And let's face it, right now, Ford has some really hot products. And what I mean by hot products that are in strong demand by the general public. They have some really hot products at the moment, between the Maverick, the Bronco
Lightning,
Sports,
the Mach-E,
the Lightning, even their regular F-150 pickup truck. So they have some product that people are clamoring for. And that's not to say that Toyota doesn't, but Toyota is having a much greater difficulty producing vehicles in the numbers that they would like to, so that they can get them to their dealers, and so that the dealers can take advantage of the demand for the Toyota product.
Let's jump back into the numbers for last month. And I just want to bring up Susanna's comment. GM is noticeably missing from that list. Yeah, the number of automakers that actually report monthly sales numbers is lower than it's ever been before. It used to be very common practice a few years ago. Then a lot of companies moved to quarterly, and now we have just a handful of companies that report each month their monthly sales rate. So Ford sales, including Lincoln, up 27.3% year over year for the month of August. Dad, Acura and Honda are just struggling. Honda's sales are down 37.7%. This time last year in August, they sold 114,000 vehicles. This most recent August, 71,000. The issues at Honda, similar to Toyota, I mean, are pretty astounding.
Yes, no, they really are. And it seems that most of your Japanese Asian brands, for whatever reason, are really struggling with production issues at the moment, whether it be normal supply chain issues, whether it be chip issues, whether there be some weather issues.
We've got the typhoon now that's closing down domestic production in Japan. For Nissan and Toyota.
So they are just really having a tough time of it. And trust me, neither one of those brands is happy about what's going on. And perhaps because when you dig deeper into some of the numbers, Ford, for instance, has increased their market share significantly because they have vehicles to sell. And they actually have some on-hand inventory to sell to consumers out there. And if that were to continue, for any length of time. I think you'll see other manufacturers figure out ways to step up and get back in the fight, because none of them want to lose any market share that they have spent years developing.
Could Ford actually end up perpetuating aspects of the dealership model because they are able to supply their dealers with more on-hand inventory, and Stellantis as well, which ultimately moves us further away from the order and receive model, because people just show up and keep buying them because we're seeing their market share increase. You can see the moment someone decides, hey, I want to go for market share, and by someone I mean an OEM,
Yes.
the moment someone decides, hey, I want to become the market share leader, they're just going to flood the market with inventory and do discounts. And so we are kind of seeing Ford do that without the discounts right now, though, which is the scary thing.
Yes, but I think you'll see more and more manufacturers. They have spent decades and hundreds of billions of dollars in over decades worth of time, you know, building up that market share. Uh, Everything that the factories talk to their dealer body about is what they want to see from your local dealer as far as what their market share is. Everything is based on grabbing more and more market share and having more and more vehicles in operation. So I think the last 2 years have been somewhat of an anomaly in that everybody's kind of accepted the fact that they can't produce the number of cars as they had in the past, and the dealers and the manufacturers saying, well, we figured out ways to continue to make nice profits by having fewer vehicles available. But once they start losing market share, my suspicion is that their thinking will change, and that suddenly everybody will be on the, well, we've got to improve our market share, we've got to get our market share back, and suddenly you'll see on-hand inventory increasing, you'll start seeing incentives increasing, and
What
you'll
did we see
start
last
seeing,
month from BMW, Dad? BMW incentives in August were actually up. I think it was like 14% from July. So, I mean, maybe you are already starting to see that in certain areas.
yeah, I trust me, they've all spent way too much and fought way too hard for the market share that they've had, that they're just not going to be willing to give it up um, so readily. So I would suspect, it's just me, but I would suspect General Motors looking at Ford's numbers, Toyota looking at Ford's numbers, Honda looking at, are saying, damn it, we've got to figure this out. We're not ready to give up the market share that we've had. And so I think, just me, just my personal thing, I think in 2023 you'll see a substantial increase in on-hand dealer inventory, so these manufacturers can protect their market share. They're not just going to give it up just to give it up.
Yep. Let's jump back into some of the data pops. We've got Kia and Hyundai, Dad. Their sales were up 17.7% year over year, from 115,000 units to 135,000 units. Mazda sales down 6.7%, 25,000 vehicles delivered. Subaru sales squeaked out year over year,
Finally.
a 1.5% year over year increase in vehicles sold. Lexus and Toyota, like we talked about at the outset, Lexus sales are actually off 20%. Toyota sales down 8.1%, blended together gets you a 9.8% decrease. And Volvo struggling mightily, down 23.9% year over year. Of these 7 OEMs reporting, and there are many more than 7. Again,
Yes.
particularly missing from here is General Motors. We are down about 2%. Now, Dad, if you scroll down,
Stellantis is missing.
Yep. And if you scroll down, then we've got some more information breaking down the amount of vehicles that are in inventory. So, for example, Ford said they ended August with 259,000 vehicles in dealer stock or in transit, up from 254,000 at the end of July and 215,000 as of a year ago. So Ford's inventory levels are building back up, and that is in part influenced by a lack of consumer demand. We have,
Mhm.
Dad, sales at Toyota for particular vehicles. Camry sales down 5.7%, Corolla off 20%, Highlander down 24%. The RAV4 was up 9.1%, Tacoma up 11%, and Toyota says they ended the month, with 132,000 vehicles in U.S. inventory, but only 16,500 of them at dealerships. The remaining 116,000 were at ports or in transit. Honda, Dad, as we talked about before, they're struggling considerably. Hyundai, Kia, they've had their declines as well. So it's pretty much across the board, but Ford is the bright spot here.
When you look at the Honda numbers for on-hand inventory and the Toyota numbers for on-hand inventory, and what is considered on-hand inventory is that the bulk of it is in transit, I would be curious as to what the percentage of that in transit inventory that is expected to arrive this month is already pre-sold. And what I mean by pre-sold is somebody already has a deposit on it or a reservation on an incoming vehicle, so that even though it could show as an on-hand vehicle, it really isn't, because once it arrives, it's already spoken for. But I would be curious as to what percentage of those 116,000 vehicles are actually spoken for. I would suspect it's rather high.
Let's switch gears and let's talk about some good news. Every once in a while, we're actually able to share good news. That Experian, they put out
Wait a second. I thought it was against the law for us to share good news.
No, we're able to share some good news.
Okay.
Experian, Dad. Experian put out their August, this was a quarterly update, Q2 update, automotive finance industry update. Dad, one of the first slides in Experian's presentation, credit unions experienced highest total share in 5 years, market share of total financing. For those of you that listen to the podcast, I'll try and say this with dramatic effect. The share of credit union financing jumped up from 18.32% in Q2 of last year to over 25, almost 26% of new auto loans in Q2 of this year, Dad, were through credit unions. That's huge. They beat out captive finance arms that were at 22.64%. The largest share of auto loans was going through traditional banks or financial institutions like Bank of America, et cetera, 27.94%. 12.55% went through specific finance companies. Not 100% sure what that one means. And then 11% went through buy here, pay here lots or other financing. Dad, the big storyline here, credit unions are gaining more market share of auto loans. That is good.
That is good, because credit unions have a different purpose than, say, a bank does. A bank, their driving excuse me, their driving force is to make profits, and credit unions, their driving force is to take care of their members. They're member oriented, not necessarily profit oriented. I'm not saying that credit unions don't have to make money. They do. They have to pay the people that work in them. But it's not as profit centered as it is member centered. Now, the only thing that I think can have an impact on that moving forward is as interest rates start to go up, and if, as I suspect, moving into next year, we will see greater on hand inventory at dealerships. The captive lenders, through their manufacturers, could come up with incentivized interest rates that credit unions won't be able to compete against. The 0% interest, the 0.9% interest. Credit unions are not going to compete against that. So if we suddenly see more incentivized interest rates from the captive lenders, we might see a decline in loan originations from credit unions moving forward. But I would hope that not to be the case.
Dad, we also got some interesting data here with regards to overall loan balances and, more importantly, delinquency rates. But let's comment on this briefly. First, overall loan balances grew 8% year over year. We are at $1.361 trillion in outstanding automotive loan balances. It's a little bit of money. Nothing to be too worried about. Delinquencies, Dad, they are beginning to rise. And interestingly, here we get into I'll pull it up in just a second. We get into some segmented delinquency data, which is
Mhm.
super interesting. But the too long didn't read here, Dad, is that 2.29% of all outstanding loan balances. So 2.29% of 1.36, what do we say, $1.361 trillion
Yes.
is more than 30 days delinquent. That is up from 1.61% in Q2 of 2021 and up from 1.76% in Q2 of 2020. When you look back further, 2019 and 2018, we are actually down.
Yes.
2018 delinquency amounts were 2.79% and 2.66% in 2019. But Dad, we are up from 1.61% to 2.29% in 1 year in terms of outstanding loan balances for more than 30 days delinquent.
And even though they're still below historic levels in the past, um, the fact that there was such a dramatic increase from 1 year to the next, from that
Mhm.
quarter to that quarter to 2021 to quarter to 2022, that to me is significant. To
Mhm.
see that level of increase happen so quickly. Yes, we're still below historic levels, but anytime you see that type of jump, I don't think that bodes well for what the future may hold, especially with inflation being what it is and it becoming harder and harder for many people to figure out how to meet all their monthly um, obligations. So I think we'll see more and more delinquencies moving forward.
60-day delinquency rates broken down by different segments. That this data is super interesting. Current 60-day delinquency rate by new or used vehicle. 0.42% of delinquencies that are 60 days or over are new vehicles. Over 1% of used cars that are on the road right now that have an auto loan associated with them are 60 days delinquent. That huge disparity there. And where
Yes.
was the financing sourced? Did the consumer buy the vehicle at a franchised car dealership? If they did, 0.59% of those loans are currently 60 days delinquent versus an independent lot, where 1.55% of those vehicles are currently 60 days delinquent. And Dad, down here, car, SUV, truck, or van. This data is super fascinating. 1.16% of cars are currently 60 days delinquent versus 0.58% for CUVs, SUVs, and wagons, 0.52% for trucks, and 0.61% for vans. You look at all this data, Dad, and it's hard not to think, okay, folks that bought used cars at independent lots that are sedans, those are
Mhm.
going to be the ones that we see repossessions on most.
Yes, and the reason for that is most of your independent dealers are they're selling to a different demographic than a franchise dealer. They're selling to people that legitimately have more difficulty in making their dollars stretch anyway. They're the ones that are looking for older, less expensive vehicles, and these older, less expensive vehicles have become even more expensive for them to buy the day. And they're stretched to the limits before they go in to buy it, and then they go in and they buy a vehicle, and it further stretches them out. And they're the ones that can at least afford to have a hiccup. And they're the ones that are having the hiccups. So yeah, I think you're going to see, when it comes to the repossessions, you're going to see more of the automobiles, the sedans, the compact midsize vehicles,
Mhm.
subcompacts, come back, and they'll be older, higher mileage vehicles, probably in the, I would guess, the 4 to 8 year old range.
Which will be interesting to see what impact that has on used car prices. We have the latest Black Book data coming out tomorrow, and we'll bring that to the show. We'll probably lead with that tomorrow. But it does bring to mind that if we see an influx of repossessed vehicles that are 4 to 8 year old, higher mileage sedans, that'll
Hmm.
likely drive down the price there, which could net out to be a really good thing because we're looking for more affordable, price attainable options for
Yes.
consumers, and that could be a good option.
Oh, absolutely. It's just, the poor people that are losing their cars to repossessions, the ones that, really needed those cars. I don't know what they're going to do, because it'll be a while before they can get back into the market and qualify for another loan of some kind. Perhaps, they would be part of that 11% that are the buy here, pay here type folks.
Yeah.
Maybe that segment could go up.
Yeah, I think you could be onto something. Dad, let's take a peek at an article that was in Automotive News. Unchecked box, a lesson in diligence. A Kentucky car dealership could have lost its chance to compel arbitration over an unchecked box in a bill of sale based on a federal ruling earlier this year. You know what? I'm actually not too keen to talk about the arbitration in this one, Dad. I'm more keen to talk about this customer's experience so we can all understand what happened here. A customer sued a dealership, Dad.
Yes.
Randall. He had agreed to put $1,000 down on a 2007 Chevy Suburban priced at $8,819. He alleged being told he had to buy gap coverage in a 1-year vehicle service contract, which added $3,799 to the vehicle's cost. We'll dig into more of like this arbitration thing and the unchecked checkbox. Dad, they're trying to double the price of the car with gap insurance, a gap waiver insurance, and a 1-year vehicle service contract. When you read this, what went through your mind?
Well, they weren't happy just making $2,000 or $3,000 on the vehicle itself. They wanted to make, I don't know, $6,000 by adding the warranty and the gap insurance. But God bless them for at least adding the gap insurance.
And we haven't used this bite in a while, but it's appropriate because what I'm about to show you is wild.
Show me the money. Show me the money.
Okay, so those charges, a dealer processing fee, sales tax, and registration fees, brought the total vehicle price to $13,194.14, according to the lawsuit. Read the next sentence, Pops.
He received a 25% interest rate on the loan. He received.
Okay.
Wait a second. I don't think the word should be he received. Okay. I think it should be he was stuck with. He had it shut. No, I can't say that. He was stuck with a 25% interest rate on the loan. God,
and you're financing $3,900 of gap and a VSC. This is terrible, man. And this is not, again, this actually has nothing to do yet with like why this is an article in Automotive News. The reason it's an article in Automotive News is this big industry hubbub of, well, he didn't check a box, so will this case actually be able to go to arbitration versus other court? But like, you just read this and you just kind of weep a little. Like, this is so sad.
That's what happens, unfortunately, if you have a bad credit or a suspect credit background and you're buying an older type vehicle and the lending source is a subprime lender, and if you're subprime and it's a subprime lender, their risk is greater. So the reward for taking that risk has to be a much higher interest rate. And in most cases, people like Randall don't find themselves in a situation where they can, price shop and interest rate shop on a loan, because there might only be the one lender that's willing to take that risk. So there's two things in play here. One is, as a consumer, understanding the importance of credit and maintaining a strong credit history. It is incumbent upon the consumer to make sure that they pay all their monthly obligations on time and without hesitation. Can't fall 30, 60, 90 days behind. You do that and you will then suddenly choke on the same type of situation that Randall found himself in. And then the other thing is that when you find yourself in that situation, if you can't find a good co-signer or a large sum of money down or somebody to personally lend you the money and at a much more reasonable rate, you are going to be stuck with those type of interest rates moving forward. And it just pretty much means Randall is going to be in that situation for a long time. And that's unfortunate.
And so kudos to Randall. Despite repeated requests by Randall, the dealership allegedly failed to give him his paperwork for more than a month after the June 13th, 2020 deal. He received it in July and noticed his signature had been forged on some of it, the lawsuit alleged. Randall's lawsuit claims his experience constituted 3 violations of TILA, the Truth in Lending Act, by the dealership. 1 count of deceptive sales practices in violation of Kentucky law by the dealership and ACA because the lender bought the retail installment sales contract. 1 count of violating the Kentucky Motor Vehicle Retail Installment Sales Act by the dealership, and 1 count of common law fraud against the dealership. The Suburban's bill of sale and retail installment sales contract contained an arbitration provision executable by either party, and the defendants pursued this in the Western District of Kentucky. And the story goes on to talk about how the dealership prefers arbitration. It's going to be cheaper for them. They have more control over that experience than if it goes to court. But since Randall didn't check a box that said he wanted to go, that he agreed, it's like after the contract, below the signature block, a box that you can check for arbitration. That is the fact that is the lead component of the story in automotive news fails and exemplifies how they fail to see how screwed up the current system is. The lead of that story should be customer has signature, fraud. The dealership forged his signature and sold him $4,000 in stuff he didn't need. The lead of the story shouldn't be dealership tries to make sure that they can go to arbitration. That's stupid, man. It just shows how backwards this industry is.
Well, yeah, the lead was, hey, you got to do your diligence as an F&I manager and make sure every box is checked. But, this is an industry publication. They're not going to say, well, goodness gracious, why is there a 1-year warranty for, I don't know, $3,200, on an $8,800 vehicle? Shame on the dealer for doing that. No, it's an industry publication. Their job is to make sure that they better inform F&I people and dealerships moving forward. An industry publication like Automotive News is not a consumer advocacy publication as we would be. So, I mean, yeah, maybe in a different publication, the headline would be customer wants to sue dealership over
forging
forgery
signature.
Yeah, but you have to look at the publication and what industry it serves. They're needless to say, there's an awful lot wrong within the automotive industry. This is just another example as to why people need to go to the FTC and submit a comment about the proposals that the FTC is trying to put forth to have dealers operate in a more enlightened, transparent manner. Really? You gotta be kidding me.
And that last segment wasn't our really, you've got to be kidding me, sent in from one of our community members, Alex. Dad, this comes by way of the state of Florida. I'm going to zoom in on it so that we can all see.
Truly one of the funniest things I've ever read.
Customer comes in. They need some service done on their vehicle. Here are the notes.
Yes.
Customer states coolant leak. Please advise. Belt knocked off due to chicken under hood. Verified customer concern. Found belt knocked loose by live chicken under hood. Remove chicken. Reinstall belt. Top off coolant. Road test vehicle operating as designed. Returned chicken to customer. Does it get more Florida, Dad, than this? Does it get more Florida?
No, but I gotta tell you, the cause and effect and the correction and the detail to the notes from the tech are just, I mean, God bless the tech. To have to stand over a computer and type that in. Found live chicken under the hood. Okay. Was the chicken scrambling some eggs, cooking them on the manifold? What was the chicken doing?
Remove chicken,
Yeah,
reinstall belt, top off
yeah,
coolant, road test vehicle, operating as designed, return
yeah.
chicken to customer. It's like a little poem, man. It's very
It,
beautiful.
it haiku, maybe, I don't know, but it was just it's I, having worked in the industry for 40 some years, I thought I've seen and heard everything, but that's the first time I've ever seen or heard of a live chicken causing an issue under the hood of a vehicle. I have dealt with a customer one time in
Huh.
Mesa, Arizona, where the customer said to me, he says, "Well, I'm going to have to sell some stock before I can pick up the vehicle." I said, "Well, what stock is selling?" And he said, "Well, I got to sell a couple of my cows." Well, it was livestock he was talking about, which cracked me up because I'm from Philadelphia. Ain't nobody in Philadelphia, selling livestock so that they can buy a car. I thought he was selling IBM or GE or something like that. Uh, but yeah, a chicken under the hood scrambling eggs, God knows what's next.
Friendly reminder, you mentioned it a moment ago, Dad. We are on the countdown. 6 days left to leave public comments for the
Yes.
FTC. Almost at 4,000 comments left. A lot of them, guys, a lot of them are more positive, like, hey, or excuse me, negative, like, hey, don't pass these rules. And we're seeing a
Yeah.
significant number of anonymous comments. If you haven't watched the video that dropped today over on the YAA channel, please do, because the National Automobile Dealers Association, they sent out some templates trying to get more people to leave comments. And just go to joinyaa.com/FTC
Some
FTC. It'll take you to the comment page.
and someone commented that we need to send a copy of the templates that NADA sent out, because we need to send that to the FTC, because they're trying to manipulate what's
Yeah,
going on. I mean, we
I'll do that.
encourage people to go and leave their comment about their experiences. We have never put out a template as to what they should say or how they should say it. We're not trying to manipulate anything. We're trying to marshal up the general public out there to finally have an opportunity to voice their opinion as to how they think things go at a dealership. And these people at the NADA, they're not encouraging people so much as they are manipulating the process in almost a fraudulent manner.
We saw the one, Dad, where it was like, "Hi, my name is." They forgot to,
Yeah,
they
they
just
forgot to
copy
put their
pasted
name.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll think
So,
of something. I'm trying to also get something to go a little bit viral on like TikTok or Instagram so that it gets more. It's tough to communicate in a really short period of time exactly what's happening here and how ludicrous it is, but I will try, and I will share directly with the FTC as well. I'll send them emails, and I'll tag them on Twitter too.
yeah, very good. Yeah, I think we need to continue doing everything we can between now and the 12th of this month to encourage as many people to send in legitimate comments
Yep.
about why they would be in favor of the major proposals from the FTC.
100%, Pops. 100%. All right, Dad, let's call it a day. Let's call it a show. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest data from Black Book. So stay tuned
Yes.
for a used car market update tomorrow. Should be pretty interesting. Any parting shots, Pops?
Nothing other than we'll be back here again tomorrow at noon with more news that you can use from YAA. That's noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. And until then, thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
See you, Pops. Thanks, everyone.